Hello everyone, welcome to or back to the new grid. I'm Kyle. In today's video I'm going to do something a little bit different than normal, which has been driving lately. I'm going to tell you what I think needs to be added to labels for Tesla in order to be able to properly navigate roadways, and what needs to be improved upon on what they already have. And some of these do intertwine a little bit, and I'd like to say that full self-driving beta has been very well. It does pretty good at most things, but there are some issues. But one of the things it does well is it sees cars pulling out in front of you and being able to react quickly and smoothly to those objects. It can detect piles of leaves along the side of the road and navigate around them. It can work fairly well in a decent amount of rain, to the point where it's picked up on my windshield. I can't see, but it can see and react pretty well. So with that, the first asset that needs to be added is an addition to the traffic signals. There are newer signals that are blinky yellow lights, and I've got a video of that playing now. And basically those yellow lights are to keep people to move through the intersections when they're able to move, and Tesla right now just stops at the light there and will not try to proceed through them. Another asset that needs to be added is yield signs. It just basically keeps on driving, doesn't recognize them, doesn't slow down for them, and that is something that needs to be added just out of safety. You need to at least slow down and make sure that you cover looking at your blind spots to be able to proceed through that intersection properly. One more thing that I found is, at least in my case, there's a bunch of railroad signs along the road, but none of them really make the car do anything special. So it doesn't slow down to cross the crossings, which is something that, at least in my area, the railroads are really poorly constructed and need repaired, so it's painful to go over at full speed, and I slow down a lot just to go over them. So I don't even let it drive over them at all, because it'll just take it at 45 mile an hour or whatever the speed limit is, and it'll be extremely bumpy. Another area is shared turn lanes. In the middle of divided highways, or not completely divided highways, there are sometimes shared turn lanes where you can make left turns, and those need to be recognized, because right now it does not get over into that lane to make its turn, and I have to manually take over. If I manually take over, put it in that lane, it'll proceed. I can turn it back on and it proceeds through to make that turn, but I still have to get over manually because it doesn't recognize that as a lane that it can go in to make those left-hand turns. Another thing that should be added for signage is the recommendation signs. There are, on a lot of cases, places where they put little signs that are like maybe a suggested speed limit for a steep curve in a road, so it might tell you to go 30 miles an hour in that zone rather than 45. Right now, I think Tesla does use curve detection to try to get a sense for how fast to take those turns, but it would work a lot better if it does read those signs. And finally, the last asset that is missing is turn signals on vehicles. Once those are added, that I think is going to be very similar to that blinky yellow light as to how they have to implement finding that. But that'll help it know, hey, these cars are stopped because they're turning, or hey, these cars are just stopped because traffic is backed up. And I'll get into that in one of the areas that it needs to improve upon. And with that, I'm going to start with this one area where it doesn't really understand how or when it should be able to cross the solid yellow line. Usually those are for turn lanes going into other roadways, so it tries to go into them to pass other cars, which you can when someone's turning left, but it doesn't know that the cars aren't turning left and there's backed up cars, and tries to get in them to go around those cars, and that causes an issue. So with the ability to detect turn signals, that should improve drastically when it uses that and when it doesn't use that. Another area that really needs improved upon is creeping. I've seen it creep out into the intersection too far. I've seen it turn the steering wheel and start creeping to the point where it basically blocks a 2-lane road from people entering when you're trying to exit, and it's creeping up. So that's an area that it needs to hold the lane while it's creeping and not worry about turning the wheel until it's ready to make that turn. Another area that needs improvement is predictions. So it can predict paths and steer towards them, but it makes very harsh adjustments. So the steering wheel turns a lot because it's a little unsure where it needs to go, and that definitely needs improved upon. I think that the path prediction software may be a little bit slow still, and because of it being slow, it ends up having to make quick overreactions to where it needs to be going. And kind of related to this, the path planning software needs to account for some of the navigation data that's going on, because I've seen it try to make a path around vehicles that are slow to go to the right of them when it needs to make a left-hand turn in less than 500 feet. The final thing that needs improved upon, and this is probably the one that's going to be the longest out that they're going to do, is they need to be able to drive in poorer weather conditions than what it currently allows. Like, there can be snow coming down pretty hard but not picking up on the roadways, and it's still visible enough to see, but because it's coming down so hard, it blocks enough of the camera that it doesn't know what to do. And I don't think it's a limitation in the software. I think that with the hardware anyways, so I think they should be able to allow it to work better, but right now you can either have it in degraded mode if it's a heavy rainstorm, or sometimes it'll work fine for a while and then just go to take over immediately in other conditions. So those are areas that it needs to improve upon. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I plan to make some more videos on full self-driving beta soon. And thanks for watching.